I think people have to get out of their I think people have to get out of their own head. Loneliness sometimes is a state of mind and it creates more isolation. So when people feel lonely, they pull back actually and stay home or don't want to go out because they feel so sad and alone. And that creates more isolation, which is really detrimental on the psyche, makes people feel worse. The negativity in their head gets louder and louder. And so people really need to get out of the house if they can. And even if they're not deeply connecting with someone, even small talk like in a coffee shop could bring someone out of their mind. That we're only a self in relationships. So we have to, even just talking to people about the weather or joking around or complimenting somebody's earrings that you don't know very well, you get reflected back that niceness or that kindness or appreciation. And that makes a person feel more robust and better. And so they really, it goes from getting out of your house and at least making these little conversations to joining a group. Everyone wants to belong. We want to feel part of something. And there's tons of groups doing anything you could imagine in every city around the globe. And so there's always something that you could get involved in that can make you feel part of something. And that's one of the best ways. We're very social beings as humans. And so loneliness is not something we take very well. Just reach out to somebody and see if they'll respond. What's really difficult is when people are in such isolation and feel so bad about themselves. They try to reach out and often reach out in ways that kind of sabotage that relationship even more. Once in a while that happens, and so they even feel worse, and then it deters them from reaching out again. But so that's why I have people go to coffee shops. Start with people that don't matter that much, people that you don't know. Have small talk with them, compliment them, be funny. Those kind of things are easier. They're safer emotionally, and so it's a good place to start. Instead of like when you think you're gonna, just want to leave this world because you're so alone, and then you reach out to somebody. There's so much wrapped up in that. You reach out to an old friend who just having a busy day, and they don't text you back right away. It could be devastating, and so it's like it's too much. It's too much pressure on that one person, and often people get more knocked down. I think people are basically friendly. They'll be basically friendly, and if you say, "Oh, excuse me," and you smile, they'll usually be kind and smile back like that. And maybe it'll have to be an experiment that you could do. I mean, you don't want to be creepy and ask kind of personal questions or something. But if you're like, "Oh, that's a really pretty scarf," I mean, I guess it's easier for a woman to say it to another woman, but and I know that's a visual, or that's a visual compliment. So you might not want to do that, obviously, but some kind of interaction like, "How's your day today?" or "Gosh, it's raining out there," or something like that, that people are not going to think that you're trying to steal your wallet when you're joking about the weather.
I think it's really important to make connections. There are some people who isolate themselves, and it's unfortunate, and they do tend to stay at home more. But I've even found with myself, I'm not an isolator. I do like to be a homebody, but I enjoy social activities. And it's funny, even when I'll go get a haircut or go do something to make myself feel better, if I'm going shopping and I do small interactions, I find it does help. I live with someone, so I'm not generally lonely. And when I feel that way, I will pull myself out of it and say, I need to go out or I need to do something. Some people immerse themselves in a book, but I think it's good to make the human connection. And I can think of one time in particular where I went to get a haircut. It was time anyway. And I just thought, oh, it'll make me feel better. Sometimes when you do something to pamper yourself or that, you need to do, you get out and you feel better. And this little girl was in the beauty shop and she was just so full of life and so full of energy, and she was interacting with me, and I was telling her, her mom was telling her, don't ask her so many questions. I'm like, that's all right. You ask as many questions as you want. She's never going to learn. You know, you want her first interaction. Has she ever met anybody who's blind? I asked her mother, and she goes, well, no. I said, well, you want it to be a positive interaction for her so she can ask me questions. And I'm telling you, I just felt 50 times better. And just interacting with the girls in the beauty shop and the women and talking to them just made me feel good. It really did. I enjoyed myself, and it, for whatever little funk I was in or whatever reason that I was feeling lonely. On the converse side of that, though, I've also been in a crowd, and you can sometimes be in a crowd of people and feel lonely. But it's really up to you about how you form a connection and make a connection. And I would agree with what you said about going into a coffee shop, or even if you're going to shop for something and making those small interactions and connections, they can just make a big difference sometimes. But you have to be willing to do that. You have to recognize that in yourself and say, I need to pull myself out of this little funk I'm feeling or this loneliness that I'm feeling. The other thing I think that's important is the difference between being alone and being lonely. If you enjoy your alone time reading or immersing yourself into a recipe or something fun like that, you have to define the difference about your alone time and then feeling lonely. But I've had that situation where I've been in a room full of people. Sometimes it's even been a gathering of people I knew. And they said, oh, come on out, come to this party. And it may not be for the whole entire evening or the whole entire experience, but just little moments that you say, wow, I'm with all these people and I feel so alone. So I think it depends on your experience and what you are willing to admit to yourself and what you're willing to do about the situation to change it.
Hello, this is Lyndon from Austin, Texas. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with us in our community, our ever growing community here on Varel. Do appreciate that definitely, and you've given me something to think about and something I'd like to spend a minute or two to share with you some of my opinions. Of course, they are my opinions, but I think that they work on a larger sense than just for myself. Here on Varel, I would think that the majority of the individuals here are dealing with the realities of what it means to be disabled. Most are blind, but there may be other more subtle disabilities that they deal with. And for that, they tend to take on loneliness and being alone almost like their comfort zone. It is almost like that warm, fuzzy blanket that you can wrap yourself in. And in their mind, you almost hear them say, I am alone and I prefer it that way because then I don't have to be anything to anyone. I know what I like. I know what I do. I know where I go. I know who I go with. Or I know that I don't go at all. There are plenty of examples of this. People who work in sheltered work centers for the blind, who only encounter people who they relate to on an intimate level, on that of their blindness. These are individuals who are really alone, lonely. They have contacts, yes. They know people, yes. But they don't really have that intimate connection that comes with reaching out beyond their level, beyond their comfort zone. That's really what it's all about. And yeah, I understand how you present that in saying that loneliness almost perpetuates itself. That if you're lonely, you're not going to do anything to change that because somehow you believe that that's all you're going to be. And so you begin to do things to isolate yourself even more. For myself, I have had some experiences that really have kind of shaken my character to its core. Losing my wife to cancer about a year and a half ago. Well, it was a year and a half ago, July 2015, was an experience which really brought home what that word loneliness meant. It almost had an echo around it for a number of months afterwards. But I knew I was, as you said, all humans are, a social being. And I knew I had to do something to get myself out of that quagmire, out of that perpetuating notion of loneliness, of that notion of isolation. And it would have been very easy, very, very easy to have stayed in that comfort zone and wallow in my own misery and wallow in my own depression. And I realized for myself, and really it wasn't anything more than just a realization that yes, only you, meaning myself, can change who you are. That you can change your circumstances for the better, or you can choose to do nothing and they will stay the same. Or you can, if you allowed yourself, follow the path down the hole into really, really difficult and dark clinical depression, which manifests itself in the loneliness and being alone. I had to, for my own survival, take what I was given and decide that, okay, so it's difficult. And what you're going to do is difficult. I remember the first time I went into a restaurant and sat at a table by myself. That was so amazingly difficult. It's just a little thing like that. But yet I found a way to take the words and draw them out, maybe. That's what maybe I'm trying to say. I found a way to be alone, but not lonely. Because now I have people that I can talk to. Now I have people that I can call and say, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? And these are people that I didn't know before I lost my wife. These are new people that are in my life. These are new contacts, new ways of expressing who I am. And I feel better for it. Obviously, I wish I had my wife here to enjoy these new friendships and relationships I've developed. But that was not and is not meant to be. So I have to do what she would want me to have done, and that is to try very desperately to remain happy, content, fulfilled, and not lonely. It's okay to be alone, but you don't have to be lonely. Loneliness is a choice, like so many other things.